During the Second World War, kitchens went dark, chimneys stopped smoking, stoves became useless furniture, oil disappeared into ration books. Firewood was confiscated, frozen, or simply gone. But hunger did not negotiate. Across bombed cities, occupied villages and frozen countryside, families still had to eat, quietly, carefully, often without flame, without smoke, without the tools we now take for granted. What replaced the stove was not invention, but memory. Knowledge passed down before electricity, before gas lines, before convenience. People learned to cook with stored heat, trapped warmth, soil, stone, and time itself. Meals were not prepared for comfort or taste. They were prepared to keep bodies standing another day. These methods were not clever tricks. They were survival systems repeated thousands of times under pressure. And, well, they worked. What follows are 6 forgotten WWII cooking hacks that functioned with no stove, no oil, and no firewood. Not theory, not folklore. Proven methods that fed civilians when modern kitchens failed completely. Brick top cooking replaced stoves in blacked-out cities. When stoves went cold, bricks took their place. In cities like Warsaw, Rotterdam and Berlin, bricks were everywhere thanks to destruction. Thick masonry held heat better than metal and required no fuel once warmed. Families placed bricks in direct sunlight during the day, on rooftops, windowsills, or near reflective walls. When embers were briefly available from earlier fires, bricks were positioned nearby to absorb residual warmth without producing flame. At night, metal tins or shallow pots were placed directly on the brick surface. Thin soups, soaked grains, or mashed root vegetables warmed slowly over hours. Insulation mattered. Bricks were surrounded with cloth, ash, or sand to slow heat loss. Stirring was infrequent and careful to avoid cooling. This method could not fry or boil aggressively, but it produced warm, edible food without smoke, scent, or light. In occupied zones, that invisibility was the difference between eating and being discovered. Haybox cooking trapped heat instead of creating it. Haybox cooking was one of the most effective fuel-saving methods of the war. It required only one brief heat source, then none at all. A pot of grains, beans, or stew was brought just to a boil, then immediately removed and sealed inside insulation. Hay, straw, blankets, wool coats, even crumpled newspapers were packed tightly around the pot inside a box or crate. Once sealed, the trapped heat continued cooking for hours. Families learned not to open the box because heat lost could not be replaced. In rural France, Poland and Britain, this allowed one small fire to cook multiple meals across an entire day. The food softened, starches broke down, and by evening the meal was ready without burning another stick of wood. It demanded planning, but not technology. When firelight meant danger, heat was buried. Ash pits were dug near kitchens, cellars or barns. After a fire burned down, hot ash remained usable for many hours. Sealed containers of food were placed directly into the ash or buried beneath it. Clay pots, wrapped dough, apples, roots or grain mash cooked slowly by radiant heat. The earth masked scent and eliminated visible smoke. In Eastern Europe and Scandinavia, this became routine winter practice when wood was frozen solid or confiscated. Timing was learned through repetition. Too short and food stayed raw. Too long and it collapsed into mush. But once mastered, ash pit cooking allowed families to prepare meals while patrols passed overhead, unaware that food was cooking beneath their feet. Thick clay pots were valued not just for storage, but for their ability to hold heat. During the day, pots were warmed by residual embers, sunlight, or, just a brief bit of stove access. Food was placed inside, often pre-soaked grains or partially cooked beans. Then the pot was sealed and wrapped tightly in blankets, hay, or sometimes even buried in ash. The clay released heat slowly, cooking the contents over hours without any further fuel. In rural Italy, Serbia and Poland, this method allowed one day's fire to feed the next day's meals. It required knowledge of timing and insulation, not thermometers or precision. Failure meant hunger, so, families learned quickly. When pans disappeared and oil ran out, flat stones became cooking surfaces. Dense, dry stones were heated by sun, ash, or just a brief contact with embers. Thin slices of roots, grain paste, or flat dough were placed directly on the surface. No oil, no flame, no metal required. The method was crude but effective. Stone-cooked flatbreads and softened vegetables provided texture and warmth when boiled food dominated the diet. Families marked stones that held heat without cracking and reused them, again and again. This technique could not cook liquids, but it required nothing beyond stone and patience. When heat was nearly gone, time replaced it. Grains were soaked in rainwater for long periods, sometimes a full day, until softened. The mixture was then warmed briefly, using residual heat or insulation methods like hayboxes. This reduced fuel needs to almost nothing. One handful of grain could be extended into a filling meal. The method demanded discipline and cleanliness, but it kept people fed when nothing else remained. They didn't cook for comfort. They cooked to endure. Brick by brick, pot by pot, heat held instead of wasted. These methods were not primitive. They were precise responses to collapse. And they worked. If this knowledge disappears again, it will not be because it failed, but because it was forgotten. Subscribe to the Wartime Frontlines, share this with someone who studies history seriously, and help preserve the systems that fed people when everything modern stopped working.